Have you ever wondered if a snake can swallow a person? It's a question that's been asked time and again, and today, we're going to dive into the enigma of snakes and their astonishing capabilities. Snakes. They slither, they hiss, and they've been the subject of myths and legends for millennia. From the cunning serpent in the Garden of Eden to the fearsome Nagini in the Harry Potter series, snakes have always held a certain fascination. Yet beyond the folklore, what is the real story of these creatures? And more importantly for our discussion today, do they have the ability to swallow something as large as a human being? Now before we delve into that, let's clear up some common misconceptions. One popular myth is that snakes dislocate their jaws to consume their prey. But in reality, snakes have a unique anatomical feature, a quadrate bone that allows for extreme jaw flexibility. So while it may look like their jaws are unhinging, they're simply stretching to accommodate their meal. Another misconception is that snakes are voracious predators, hunting and eating constantly. However, snakes are actually quite energy efficient. Depending on their size, species, and the size of their last meal, some snakes can go for weeks, even months, without eating again. So the image of a snake always on the prowl for its next big meal is more fiction than fact. Now that we've debunked a few myths, let's return to our main question. Can a snake swallow a person? It's a query that's piqued curiosity and stirred imaginations, often fueling fear and misunderstanding about these creatures. But as we'll discover, the answer is not as simple or as sensational as one might think. So buckle up, because we're about to embark on a journey into the world of snakes. We'll explore their anatomy, their feeding habits, and finally, whether they could theoretically consume a person. Prepare to challenge what you think you know about these fascinating creatures. To understand if a snake can swallow a person, you must first understand the snake's anatomy. So, let's dive right in. Snakes, fascinating creatures that they are, have a unique body structure that allows them to consume prey much larger than their head. The key to this lies in their jaw structure. Unlike us humans, a snake's lower jaw isn't fused at the front. Instead, the two halves are connected by a stretchy ligament, allowing the jaw to separate and accommodate large prey. Moreover, their upper and lower jaws move independently of each other. This means while one side of the jaw holds the prey in place, the other side moves forward and then clamps down, inching the prey into the snake's mouth. This process, known as pterygoid walking, is repeated until the prey is fully inside. The next stop is the snake's stomach, a long tube-like organ that extends much of its body length. The stomach secretes powerful enzymes and acids that break down the swallowed prey. The digestion process is slow, taking anywhere from a few days to a couple of weeks, allowing the snake to survive on a single large meal for an extended period. But what about the bones, you may wonder? Well, they too are dissolved by the powerful stomach acids. However, hard materials like hair, feathers, and certain types of bone are often regurgitated later. Now, it's important to note that this extraordinary ability to consume large prey doesn't come without risks. The process of swallowing and digestion requires a vast amount of energy and leaves the snake vulnerable to predators. Therefore, snakes carefully assess their potential meals, often opting for prey they can safely consume and digest. As we've seen, a snake's anatomy is uniquely designed to accommodate large prey, but is a human being within their range? Let's explore this further in the next scene. The act of swallowing is a complex process for a snake. You see, while we humans can chew and break down our food before it reaches our stomach, snakes don't have this luxury. They must swallow their prey whole, a feat that requires a remarkable display of biological adaptation and physical prowess. When a snake has found its prey and is ready to feed, it strikes with lightning speed, sinking its teeth into the unsuspecting victim. These teeth, curved backwards, act like a set of hooks that prevent the prey from escaping once it's been caught. Next comes the tough part, getting the meal down the hatch. This is where the snake's jaw comes into play. Unlike our own jaw, a snake's lower jaw isn't fused at the front. Instead, it's connected by a stretchy ligament that allows the two halves to move independently. This, combined with the ability to dislocate their upper jaw, allows the snake to open its mouth wide enough to fit prey many times larger than its head. Once the prey is secured, the snake begins the process of swallowing. It might seem like an impossible task, but the snake's body is perfectly adapted for it. The muscles of the snake contract in rhythmic waves, pushing the prey down the esophagus and into the stomach. During this process, the snake's saliva plays a crucial role. Unlike our saliva, which lubricates food for easy swallowing, a snake's saliva contains enzymes that start breaking down the prey right away, making digestion easier once the meal reaches the stomach. The whole process, from the initial strike to the final stages of digestion, can take several days, even a week depending on the size of the prey. And throughout this time, the snake remains largely inactive, focusing all its energy on the demanding task of digestion. Now that we understand the process, let's move on to the big question. Can a snake swallow a human? Now that's a question that requires a whole new level of understanding. But don't worry, we're going to tackle it head-on in our next segment. Stay tuned. Humans are significantly larger than most prey that snakes consume, but does that rule out the possibility completely? Let's delve a bit deeper into this. When we think about the average size of a snake's meal, we might conjure images of small rodents, birds, or perhaps even a decently sized rabbit for larger species. The common denominator here is that these creatures are generally much smaller than your average human. However, snakes are not just limited to these small prey. They are known to have a rather flexible diet. Some larger species, such as the green anaconda or the reticulated python, have been known to take down and consume prey that are considerably larger than what we might expect. This includes animals like antelopes, pigs, and even alligators. The largest prey ever reported to be consumed by a snake was a fully grown pregnant sheep, swallowed whole by a reticulated python. This sheep weighed about as much as an average human adult. It's a mind-boggling thought, isn't it? But before we jump to conclusions, let's remember that this is not the norm. These instances are rare and often require specific circumstances. The snake must be of a certain size, the prey must be in a vulnerable position, and the environment must allow for the snake to safely consume and digest its meal. Furthermore, the act of swallowing such large prey is a considerable risk for the snake. It leaves them vulnerable and immobile for a significant period of time. This is a risk that most snakes would prefer not to take unless absolutely necessary. So, while it's possible for a snake to swallow prey as large as a human, it's certainly not a common occurrence. The size of the prey is indeed a limiting factor, and the larger the prey, the more rarely it is consumed. As you can see, size might be a limiting factor, but there are exceptions. So, we've discussed snake anatomy, the swallowing process, and size comparisons. Now, can a snake swallow a person? Now let's circle back to our primary question. We've learned that snakes are remarkable creatures with unique anatomical features. Their flexible jaws, elongated bodies, and muscular strength allow them to consume prey much larger than their heads. Remember the size comparison we did earlier? It's clear that some snake species can grow to colossal sizes, with the reticulated python and the green anaconda being prime examples. We've also delved into the swallowing process of snakes. It's a slow, methodical process, with the snake gradually moving its jaws over its prey, almost like it's walking its mouth around the meal. This, combined with the snake's ability to dislocate its jaws, allows for the consumption of large items. But what about humans? There have been documented cases where large snakes have swallowed humans. However, these instances are incredibly rare and usually involve specific circumstances. In most cases, the snake involved is a large constrictor species, like a python or an anaconda. It's also important to note that the act of swallowing a human is a significant risk for a snake. It's an enormous undertaking that leaves the snake vulnerable for an extended period. Plus, humans aren't the typical prey for snakes. They prefer smaller, easier to manage prey. So, to answer our question, yes, a snake can technically swallow a person. However, it's an extremely rare occurrence and is far from the norm. Humans are not a part of the regular diet of any snake species, and most interactions between snakes and humans occur when snakes feel threatened and are defending themselves. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the fascinating world of snakes. Remember, though they're capable of incredible feats, it's best to admire these creatures from a safe distance.